Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Robert Aronovici. I am a technologist. So what that means is I've been in the IT field for 20 plus years at this point. A little fun fact, I worked at PWR a long while ago, helped set up most of the IT infrastructure back in the day. So that's a little fun fact. So I'm a co-founder of Cryptos and Tokens. So you can explore our website. You can also search and find me on LinkedIn. Definitely connect with me if you have any ideas, not just for blockchain or cryptocurrencies, also for other IT solutions. Definitely will be there and available. We can connect. If you're curious, what is the next big thing and where we're evolving, as you can see, just with the pandemic last year, everything has changed. IT is the front runner for the way we are evolving and moving into the future. So I'm ready to educate you. So sit back and relax. What we're going to do is just go through a couple steps here. So blockchain, the evolution of digital transactions, what that really means and entails. So what is blockchain? What does it solve? Which is the biggest puzzle. Who uses blockchain? That's the most relevant question. And what is Bitcoin for those of you who don't understand it or want to learn a little bit more? So we'll go through these subjects. Just for clarity, we'll go through the whole presentation. And then at the end, we'll take a quick break for everyone to ask questions. We can go really into depth. And this is going to be very streamlined and smooth to learn. All right, so let's get started. Just a disclaimer. So anything within this presentation is not financial advice. So this is for educational purposes to better educate and expand your knowledge into fintech, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and other associated technologies such as IoT, AI. So let's get started. Okay, so the history of blockchain. So blockchain is a technology that's been around since the early 90s. So founded by two doctors, they co-published their findings on a white paper, and essentially the ledger that they created was a timekeeping digital transaction stamp. So it time-stamped, recorded, so that way there was no way to duplicate or intersect any bad data that was coming in. So the importance of this development was huge at the time. So it could definitely solve a lot of huge hurdles that in the early 90s, which needed to be approved and accepted to go about bringing the internet and other technologies. So replacing notary services, this was going to be huge. So with all technology, you're going to be replacing human work. So you need baby steps to evolve, to phase out old bad work. So at the time, it was revolutionary, as I mentioned. So the other problem and challenge that people were questioning was the double spending. So if you have a one transaction that was valid, there can't be a duplicate. So you can counterfeit paper money, but most records that are digitally stamped and recorded only through input, you cannot replicate or counterfeit. So we'll go more into depth with visualizations. So if this is a little bit over your head, just wait. It'll all make sense. So all of this is backed by some sort of form of security. So hashing is a very popular method of encrypting data. So CIA and NSA, they all use these tactics. So these files reside somewhere within the computer, and with these key store files, seeded phrases, and private keys, you've probably heard stories before where people have mined Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies and they lost their computer out there somewhere, and all of a sudden they can't access because they lost that portion of the encrypted file that says, they are the ownership of that Bitcoin or crypto asset. So that'll get explained in a short bit here. So the most prominent feature is the transparency, because these cryptocurrencies on the blockchain are public and viewable by anybody around the world. So I'm going to give you an example here. So this is going to open up in a browser. So Bitcoin has a browser. Let me just click here. Make sure I'm sharing the screen here. Okay, so if you can see my screen, okay, so I'm sharing the screen. So this is a blockchain explorer. It's very much similar to viewing data on a website. So the backend data is the blockchain, and here you can see all the relevant information. So you can see the status, the timestamp, the size of the data. There's a lot of metadata here. So the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it's pseudo-anonymous. So you're dealing with peer-to-peer transactions, and you're only seeing a pseudo-anonymous person sending it to another person. So collectively, you could be sending it to your friend, but in the public view aspect, nobody really knows who sent the data. They just see data was sent. Okay, so jumping back here. And the same thing is for Ethereum. So most of these explorers, I'm just going to open this one quickly and share the screen. So not all explorers are the same. This is just data shown on the front end on the UI, and it's very similar info. You can expand to see more details, so you can see the value that was sent, and could be a little bit different. So it's just the layout of the data. All right, so let's go back into here. All right, so with these types of challenges, more challenges would arise. So the automation of AI, web services, and APIs, as well as smart contracts, would evolve from a blockchain. So we'll get into a little bit of the smart contracts, but everybody should be familiar with web services. They're just programming languages that can be interconnected between different networks, companies that are running databases. So they're open-ended as well as private. So, and of course, everybody's becoming familiar with AI and automation. So all these play a factor into the blockchain evolution. So as I mentioned, this innovation, it has been widely popular now with Bitcoin, with the emergence and the adoption. So just like the internet, there is the open-ended internet, the HTTP, and then the internet and versus the internet. This is where we're going. So Bitcoin is the internet where it's free flowing publicly. There are other cryptocurrencies as well as blockchains that are just private. Okay, so moving on. That's a little bit of the history, the background. All right, so visualization. So this will help you. So databases versus blockchain are very, they're very different in aspects of what they do. So databases are centralized. So just a case in point, a bank is going to run a database with a ledger. Now, they're not going to run a blockchain that's open to the public because that's sensitive information. So hopefully that is in your mind, you can sort of see that aspect. So what blockchain is really good for is transparency and immutability. So you take responsibility for all transactions. So once a transaction is recorded, can never be modified. As opposed to a database, you can perform edits, you can delete records, and there's pros and cons. Okay, as I mentioned, the public transparency is from what you have seen on the block explorers from the websites I showed you. So you do see some metadata, but there is some privacy where you don't see your name, your address. That's pseudo-anonymous. So there's more scalability at hand here. Databases can perform more transactions, but Bitcoin, the transactions are limited right now, and that could change because Bitcoin can change at the core. If you have a question about how that happens, I can definitely just ask a question and then we'll answer that at the end. But as I mentioned, everything is all evolving. So blockchain and cryptocurrencies are just code that can be updated. So as I was mentioning, so the transactions on database versus a blockchain are different. So just remember, databases have a central point as opposed to a blockchain where nobody controls the blockchain. It's the full network. So that will become more clear in a few of these visualizations and diagrams. Okay, so blockchains are the building blocks. Think of them as stacking or connecting. So think of it as a Lego shape. So you build vertically or horizontally, and you want to complete the set. So once they're completed, you shelve that data. You could always take a look back with a transaction. Okay, so your verification, you're looking at the block explorer to verify the transaction has been committed and transacted. All right, so once you remove a piece from the Lego set that's supposed to be attached, or if you add a different color, as opposed from when you're looking at the manual, if you put a invalid piece or if you take away a piece, that invalidates the whole blockchain. So when that occurs, you create something that's called forking, and all that's doing is creating a different branch for this code, this cryptocurrency, and anybody can do that. So One thing you've probably heard is all these other different types of cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin. So anybody can take a look at the Bitcoin code because it's a free source, it's an open source, and you can modify and create your own cryptocurrency. Now, the challenge is you need a good utility for your cryptocurrency to have value. So keep that in mind. So let's see here. I think a few people raised their hands. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions, I'll take a look here. All right, so we're going to move on. I'll answer that one in a bit. All right. So we talked a little bit about blockchain and the challenges and the what is growing into. So on top of blockchain, there's data. So there's an asset backed on the blockchain. So there's more to this aspect. So think of the blockchain as a freeway path. So on the freeway, you have different lanes. And on those lanes, you have the vehicles. So the vehicles are the data that's running on that blockchain. Okay, so they're different than a database because they're open source and there's no one party controlling all the data. Okay, so now we're going to get into smart contracts, which are digital contracts that are executed on the blockchain. So this is also a piece of software, the data that is sent on the blockchain and executed. So typically there are workflows that are more advanced. So they're logical executions. So I see a few people raising their hands. So I don't want to get, if I'm a little bit too ahead. So let's ask Rex. Okay, Rex, did you have a question? Oh, wait, let's see here. Okay. All right. Anybody have a question? Raise your hands if you do. Okay, if not, we'll go ahead. Okay. All right, so a few people were asking questions. All right, so continuing on. So this eliminates the middlemen, such as notaries, lawyers, and other third parties, especially in your field, real estate. This could definitely have a huge impact, which it's already starting to have an impact, but a full automated real estate transaction is definitely an end goal for a blockchain. So think of nobody in between processing, the MLS or the listings or even doing any of the paperwork. This is all generated and automated through smart contracts. So since it's just code executed, one party, will generate the smart contract, and then the other party, the end party, will receive the executed code if all the logic is applied. Here's a quick example. So, all right, so old and traditional methods are definitely costly. They're inefficient. There's just too much friction in between, as we know. I remember developing, I was trying to create a unified MLS listings on the, as a web form. And there were a lot of challenges between that because there were so many different logical implications that could happen. So essentially, you can eliminate all the parties in between, and you just go from point A to point Z without any of the letters in between. So execution can happen much quicker. So once these smart contracts are executed, as I mentioned, blockchain is immutable, so you cannot edit them, you can't alter them or delete them. So they just run until the end of time. And that's what's different about blockchain than databases. So with databases, most of them are going to have end of life, as opposed to blockchains, they'll continue on forever. Okay, so let me make sure the audio is on. Yep, for sure. Sound. So here is a good explanation. This is a good 101. So this is going to open your, if you're a basic introductory level person trying to understand blockchain, this is going to be a good visualization. So here we go.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes a blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the genesis block. Now, let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks, because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves. Want to learn how you can implement a simple blockchain in JavaScript? Then check out this video.
All right, so that was the breakdown with visuals, because it's always easier to see and to, obviously comprehend. So what we'll do right now is, so since we're 30 minutes in, let me check here the QAs. All right, so that one is good to go. All right. So Tyron asked, what programming language should we learn if we want to create smart contracts? Okay, so with Ethereum, which is the leading platform infrastructure for, it's the second known and most popular blockchain. That one uses a programming language called Solidity. So I'll answer this. Okay, so Solidity is a Java-based programming language. So you're executing those smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. Okay. So let's see. Okay, how do I see blockchain? It is technically eliminate the need of realtors into contracts. Well, yes. So the consensus is that eventually, well, especially right now, I'm sure a lot of you realtors are experiencing this in your field with all the remote work and the websites and web applications that allow you to remote and perform online guest meetings and touring, virtual touring. So we're going that route. So you need to better understand what is coming. So to prepare yourself, understanding these fundamentals, they will prepare you going forward. Now, blockchain is just one piece of it. Obviously, there's AI, and with the website, internet evolving to, include more rich websites to allow you, obviously, to remote in, just like Zoom. Zoom is one of the key factors that emerged from the the coronavirus. So a lot of you who have been in the stock market probably saw a big boost in IT stocks because IT is the front runner going forward. So hopefully that answers that question. Blockchain can replace escrow. Yes, with the smart contracts. So there are a lot of platforms already, and one of the slides we'll get to in the towards the end, we'll dive into some of these blockchain startups. They're locally or worldwide. So Jessica asked, would an example glide forms signature process? Yes. So with a smart contract, that digital signature would affirm that a transaction has been stamped and recorded on the blockchain, and nothing would be able to tamper that. Okay, Monica has a huge question here. It's a long question. Let's see. I see many problems arising out of this. It may be possible to sign a blockchain real estate purchase, but I see many problems that can arise. Although it is immutable, I see possibility for fraud to occur. I wonder what the courts. Okay, well, I'm not sure what your conception of fraud on the blockchain would be, because you cannot duplicate another transaction. When you look at the Block Explorer and you have a transaction ID, that is solely unique. So once you obtain that transaction and you record it and you have a copy, well, the original asset, because it could be an asset, a data asset. So if you have that, as long as you have that, then you have the proof of the transaction. So I can show you offline better examples, and then when we get to the different companies, startups, projects that are tackling this, you'll probably have a better idea. Okay, so seems like proper execution of blockchain is based on the validity and accuracy of smart contracts. Yes, so of course, with all technology and programming languages, it is up to the coder or the code team when they're publishing and executing smart contracts. There could always be bugs, there's all kinds of things that can happen, challenges. So I remember when I was developing, the ePay system. I'm sure some of you have used the ePay system within PWR. That's had some challenges, but it's grown. So it's no different than that. So, all right. So I think I've answered all those questions. So we're going to move on. I think we're at the halfway point. All right. So let's continue.
Blockchains.
All right. So types of blockchains. So, but just quick hands. If you're still here, just raise your hand. Let's just make sure. Okay, great. We're going to continue on. Hopefully you're learning. All right, so here we go. So types of blockchains, because not all blockchains are the same. So there are definitely centralized, decentralized, and distributed. And we can break this down as such. So centralized, you can still have a centralized blockchain, which differs from a database. But then when you're thinking outside the box and trying to develop something within the space, you have to really make sure you cannot interchange the word blockchain with database. So a bank institution with other banking institutions can use a centralized blockchain for a more clear, auditing traces, scalability, efficiency. As I mentioned, it's all about accountability. So you've probably heard banks and such, perform a lot of laundering and, mischievous deeds like Wells Fargo, when they were just creating accounts out of nowhere. With blockchain, you would be able to pinpoint all those issues right away because they're transparent, they're readily available. With databases, you can still have an entity going in the back end. You probably heard about it, where they can modify and change some data, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what happened? So it's more prevention of glitches, sort of say. So the centralized can be, quote unquote, a private blockchain. So then you scale up to a decentralized network. So this means, so for everybody, all intents and purposes, I'm gonna keep this simple. So all these pinpoints are nodes, and nodes are just a fancy word in the computer technology space for computers, servers, any device. So your laptop can be a node. So you can download the whole Bitcoin blockchain, which is several gigs. From the video, as mentioned, anybody can download the blockchain of the Bitcoin code and have the whole ledger. So you are participating in the decentralization of the Bitcoin node. And this can also be applicable for other blockchains like Ethereum and Cardano and various others, you name it. I think even Dogecoin, that's the same. I don't, really, Doge is a different breed, no pun intended, but you can see how we're scaling out. So these nodes have a copy of the blockchain, which is particularly a database, but it's only input driven in. So there are code that is ran. You run a software that keeps you on the network for participating, and you can obviously earn participation. You've probably heard of mining, which I think on the next slide we're going to get into. So this is an open network that is decentralization. So there's no one point of failure. So as opposed to this, a central authority, so a hacker could take down the network here. There could be a power outage, and that would disable all of these nodes. Now, a hacker would simultaneously need to attack every single main point to take down the whole network. Now, that is physically impossible. So Bitcoin has never been down. The uptime has been 99.98% up. There have been, depending on the hashing power, so collectively, these computers are producing power. So you would have to either shut down the internet or do something with the power grid to eliminate and stop a Bitcoin. So Bitcoin at this point is very unstoppable because of this flow right here. Yeah. So hopefully that's a good visualization. Now distributed is further out. This technology is a web-based thing. Think of this as a spider web. It's entangled, and if you don't know spider webs, what they produce is very tough. So this is near impossible. It's actually very impossible to take down. Again, you would have to take down the whole internet grid. So, which is a distributed network. So think of it as every single realtor working together in tangent. So data is readily available, split second. So this is a little bit further out, 5 to 10 years. We're definitely at this point now in the inflection point. So as everything evolves, this would be the next scalability. So actually a good let's see, example here would be for Internet of Things, IoT. So you probably heard of smart watches or smart lights, any device, and many of you probably have garage openers that you can open from your phone. Those are Internet of Things. So they will eventually be connected through a Wi-Fi, and aggregating all the data, you can then mitigate how much power sources, how often you can pull statistics, how often you do things. Okay, so moving on here, a problem which can be solved. So these are the problems in the real world that blockchain can definitely solve. So currency. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't invest in the dollar or any currencies around the world because all they do is depreciate. So it's just bad business. So you have inflation that's always caused by currency. And most of these cryptocurrencies can alleviate that issue because it's programmed. So I'd rather, there's a joke in the blockchain crypto space that I'd rather trust a developer, a geek, to program my money than a banker saying, oh yeah, we'll take care of your money. Okay, who has this problem? Well, there's actually quite a few entities. So banks, obviously, governments always collapse. Just look at Venezuela. Turkey right now is going through hyperinflation. Most of Africa. So these institutions are usually greedy because when you deposit your money, now most of you know when you deposit your money into your bank, that money is already lent out by your bank. So it's just numbers on a screen. Okay, so everything is going digital at this point. So why not look at a better alternative? Because cryptocurrencies, there are challenges, but they are each day they're being resolved and executed. So next topic here. So subtopic, let's see, how will I know the problem has been solved? So this is already happening. So the key indicator here is the Lindy effect. If you actually look this up, the definition of the Lindy effect is anything that occurs and is established within a 10-year period, such as Bitcoin. It's been 13 years running. Anything that survives 10 years will exponentially grow that much stronger. So you'll definitely see Bitcoin keep evolving and growing from here on out. It's just too big to fail, just like the banks. The banks are too big to fail, but eventually they'll have to adopt and adapt blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Okay. All right. So the problem, why should you even care? This will definitely shift the balance of power, just like gold and stocks and the dot-com bubble did for many in prior years. This technology can give you the power to, change your wealth. So there's a generational wealth gap that's usually, taken care of within 10 to 20 years. So this time around is no different with this technology. So you can help the unbanked. So Africa does not have a lot of central authority banks. So all these African, residents, all they have are just a cell phone, and they're attached to the internet somehow through their mobile carrier. So that's just a tool in itself to allow them to have exposure to the outside world and even cryptocurrencies. So that's a powerful tool to have. All right, so Next slide here, solutions and use case. This is one of my favorite topics. Okay, so I see there's a few questions. Let me see if we can gauge and interact here. Okay. Answer that one. Okay, I don't mean fraud within the blockchain. Okay, yeah. So again, that's to be seen. All right, so let's see what Judy says here. Yeah, so yes, Judy, there will be a recording, which is recording now. Although directly distributed, the will. Yes and no. That's subjective right there. So this user is saying that somebody with a lot of capital can shift the flows of the evaluation of a asset. So it's no different than what the banks do. So take that to an effect. All right, Rex, I have a client who wants to sell their house for Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, there are definitely platforms that allow to do that. They have a mortgage. Do I have any information? Yes, so you can definitely email me. I'll provide you the email again at the end of the slide, or I'll so can shoot you over some material there. Okay, so we're going to go on to my favorite subject here. So solutions and use case, because this is really what everybody needs to be paying attention to, especially in your field. So peer-to-peer transfers. Most of you probably remember the Napsters, the LiveWires, all those fun downloading applications. So we're taking those applications and decentralizing them. So there was still a central point of attack with Napsters. That's why they were able to be shut down. Now, if everybody runs this same type of Napster on a blockchain where there is no one person controlling and managing the code, that's more powerful. Now, there are different blockchain and crypto projects already solving that. So you probably have heard about BitTorrent. So BitTorrent was bought out by a cryptocurrency company, and now they have a token utilizing rewards and payments for sharing different media. Now, baked into the code, you can now pay royalties to the curators of that media. So it's a win-win situation for both users. And the more you share, the more rewards. So if you keep your computer up and running, that's beneficial to both parties. So I remember just downloading and then shutting off my internet, because I didn't want people leeching off. It was obviously taking up bandwidth, but now you're rewarded to share, sort of say. So so the example I just gave you is actually a better one than this. So you can definitely save time, money, transactions, and you can have a mini micro economy based within these dApps. So dApp is a fancy word for decentralized applications. So you have applications that you're accustomed to on the iOS and the Android platform, and dApps will run on these decentralized blockchain networks. So they can't be taken down, and it has to be done by consensus. So, and I can get to that a little bit more. If you have more questions about consensus, you can ask, I'll definitely answer. So we're creating store of value. So the best example now is, you probably heard of the hottest thing called NFTs. Those are non-fungible tokens. And there will probably be an advanced course later this year that will introduce you to NFTs and more about smart contracts as we become more aware. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens, as I mentioned. So they're exchangeable goods and assets that are very unique, as opposed to the paper dollar. That's a fungible item because you can trade a dollar for a dollar, a Bitcoin for Bitcoin, or another cryptocurrency. But a non-fungible item can be like a house, a unique house, a digital, item within a game, and et cetera, et cetera. So these are usually stored on a mobile app, on a paper wallet, some sort of computer device. And when you look into these wallets, you are storing that data on there. So just keep that in mind. All right, so transforming banking, to self-banking, or you've probably seen on Twitter, hashtag unbank yourself. So as I mentioned, there are people out there, poverty-stricken countries that don't have banks and need financial freedom. This is the opportunity with just a mobile phone. As I mentioned, you can trade peer-to-peer. You don't need centralized monies in this respect. So it's definitely changing the way we're thinking about money. Because what is money? Money is really not backed by anything. Ever since we've been off the gold standard, the dollar, it has just been backed by people's belief that we are the strongest economy. But China is challenging that, Russia is challenging that, so are other countries. And now you've probably heard about China and different countries developing their own digital currency. Now that is going to be a private currency within their markets, not open entirely to others. So that way they can control the flow of money digitally, since we're already going there. And when you log on to your Chase or Bank of America, as I mentioned, those numbers are all digital. They're just stored on a database presenting you what you ultimately have, debit and credit. And we're trusting these banks don't modify that in any way. You're hoping you don't get dinged with fees and et cetera. Okay. So another use case for tokenized assets. This is what's going to open your eyes. With properties, collectibles, as I mentioned, the NFTs. So blockchain prevents counterfeit. So think of a baseball card in a digital manner. So when you open up a baseball packs, you really don't know how many of that player's card is really in existence, much like the dollar. So if anybody can answer me how many dollars are actually in circulation, the precise number, I will send you a Bitcoin. So, and it's physically impossible because we don't know what the Federal Reserve has printed, especially with all the last year's, I call it a bailout, all of these, quote unquote, rescue packages and, like funny money is just money they're printing out of thin air. And that's going to cause a lot of inflation. So with cryptocurrencies, as with Bitcoin, I can tell you precisely there's 21 million Bitcoin that's ever been created. And you can track that on the blockchain. You can also see the circulating supply that's currently, held and traded. And all that is transparent. Okay, so property, think of an escrow or a piece of like a hotel or some other property. Somebody can own a piece of that property through a digital asset with a smart contract. You can show ownership on your phone or device, and then you can transfer that piece of property without any third parties. So you can, sell it, trade it, you name it. Okay. So the best example is video games, real estate, and stocks. These are all, becoming relevant, and they're already transforming the space. Okay. So the results are ERC tokens or any token on a blockchain. So Ethereum is the biggest by market cap right now. A lot of institutions are using Ethereum. So you can see, like when you just Google different, just type in real estate companies using Ethereum, you'll be shocked. There's like over 100. It's probably in the thousands now. Okay, so then you have STOs, which are security token offerings, and even the New York Stock Exchange is already developing tokenized stocks. So you can actually own a piece of the stock as opposed to a paper trade. Okay, like on your Robinhood, you really don't own the physical underlying asset. All right, so that was a lot to chew. So if you build it, they will come, as I say. So currently, Bitcoin is integrated with many big enterprise companies. As you can see here, these are just a couple of them. So you got the Bank of New York Mellon, which is the oldest bank in New York State. Okay, so they came out a month ago and said that they will provide custody services for customers and clients, existing clients that are ready to dive into the cryptocurrency asset space. So I believe institutional custody is the first gateway. So a lot of people are not going to want to manage their data. It took 10 years for people to really accept PayPal. Now people are utilizing Venmo because it's more user friendly. And a lot of people don't understand that Venmo was bought out by PayPal and forged from PayPal, a subdivision. So PayPal makes it easy to transfer money to your bank account. Also, you can trade cryptocurrencies, buy and sell, but you're not actually owning the physical underlying asset. So what I mean by that, as I mentioned, it's more of a paper trade on their database that's saying, oh, you bought Bitcoin, you can only buy and sell. They do have plans to actually provide you the underlying asset. So the most powerful thing is if you actually use an exchange or an app that you can actually physically buy the Bitcoin and transfer, then you know you actually have the physical asset. So again, I can go more in depth on the side. We can take that offline. So I talked a little bit about dApps, which are decentralized applications. They're going to coincide with these platforms. Everything essentially will become decentralized. There may be just one or two manpower, behind the whole company or project running your infrastructure and your business. So the thing that's being born right now are decentralized exchanges. So imagine nobody having control, and a full autonomous control is by the blockchain, by the smart contracts. So nobody has the keys, nobody has the power to change the value of the price index of Bitcoin. And if you were to exchange, you would send your Bitcoin or money to this decentralized exchange, and all the conversion and the rate change would happen, autonomously. So it's very powerful stuff, especially with APIs and other AI automations. Okay, so the first killer dApp was actually Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a dApp because it's peer-to-peer. So, and it's 13 years going strong. And so DeFi is next with smart contracts. Imagine, will you, that you can actually earn 10 to 15% on the dollar as opposed to you depositing into a bank account and earning only a fraction of that. So when you go to the bank, next time you go to the bank, I'd like you to ask your teller or your banker that you are very friendly with and say, hey, do you think you can, hook me up with 10% on my dollar? They're probably going to laugh at you and say, sorry, we're not that kind of bank. But with dApps, you can download all sorts of applications, dApps out there, and you send your cryptocurrencies, you hold them in your wallet as a savings account, and you're earning a lot more. So that's the next evolution of banking yourself. Okay. So blockchain is definitely industry agnostic. So with all these generational blockchains, we're at the third generation. And with the inclusion of smart contracts, they're only becoming faster and more efficient. And you can just transfer anywhere around the world. So I know a lot of my friends have, family in different, parts of the world. They use Western Union. They're taking a piece of the pie, like $10 fee and then another percentage. So all those savings can be used with a peer-to-peer, asset like Bitcoin, where you're only being charged like, a couple pennies, a couple fractions, less than $1 to send an asset. And then they can use, like an exchange like Coinbase to then transfer it to their bank account. So it makes it more feasible. So cost savings for sure. So Microsoft, Starbucks, Fidelity, and ICE, which is the International Commission Exchange of New York, they've collaborated. They've created a futures platform called pact. So pact is huge. So that's for institutional traders. And that was the first huge step and sign that Bitcoin is here to stay. So governments are now looking into it. If you research Miami, I believe it's the governor or mayor. The mayor of Miami. He is now exploring and taking, he wants businesses to allow the choice for individuals to take payments for Bitcoin and also Ethereum, I believe. So your wages can be paid in these cryptocurrencies. Since cryptocurrencies have more appreciative value, you're actually earning a lot more than the depreciating dollar. Okay. So Facebook also wants to jump into the game. They're still developing their Libra. I think they've already renamed their coin like 3 or 4 times now. So just imagine that platform already has, well over 2 billion users. So within the platform, everybody can, trade. Now their cryptocurrency is a little bit more unique as it is a stable coin. So that word will be probably thrown out there a lot. Stable coins are cryptocurrencies that are pegged to an asset and are always stable. So most likely a fiat currency as a dollar or a different country's fiat, or perhaps it could be to gold. So there's different stable coins that are tied to a different asset. So Libra coin, you would, from previews and other writings I've read and researched on the resources, you would use one of the applications already on Facebook. You would sign up, no different, and then you're in the system. Basically, you hook up your bank account, checking, ACH, whatever you want, deposit, and now imagine you can send their cryptocurrency around the world, to anybody. Now it is stable, so you really don't want to invest, but it's a great vehicle to send money around the world with your friends connected, much like you already do with Venmo. So powerful stuff coming along. And obviously Tesla, many of you heard last month, Elon made the decision to take payments for cars using Bitcoin, partial payments or full payments. They're actually on their books, bookkeeping, they are actually also holding Bitcoin. So that's huge. So they're not converting to the US dollar. So they're hodling, as we say, holding on to dear life, because Elon is a smart guy, obviously, and he sees the benefits of cryptocurrencies. Especially if you think outside of the box, just like he does. He wants to explore Mars and different parts of the world or universe. And how would you send money? You would send it in some sort of digital manner, cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, what have you. All right, so that was a lot to chew. If you have questions, go ahead and ask. I think we're getting to the juicy part here, just to give you a breakdown. And then the next slide is the slides for the realtors to really indulge in. Okay, so not everyone can own gold as easily, because storing gold, takes a lot of time, effort, and money. You need a safe, transporting it. You can really see this breakdown here on this chart, why Bitcoin is becoming the digital gold. Okay, and you're not going to go into a bar and shave off a sliver of gold, or paying gold coins. It's silly at this point. So Bitcoin, when it's fully adopted, you could just use a QR code scan to send your Bitcoin, pay your bartender, et cetera, et cetera. It's just all about adoption and awareness. So we are, at that point, everybody's becoming familiar with QR codes. When you go to a restaurant, as it is, you may not 50% of the time you're going to be given a digital QR code to scan for the menu. So that's just the reality. That's where we're living. Now, it's not a bad thing. It's just trying to force people at this point to utilize the technology that's been around for a long time. Asia's been using QR codes since the mid 2000s. So it's nothing new. So unlike gold, Bitcoin, at least how much is in existence. Gold, there's people finding gold mines everywhere. So, go figure. So that obviously can drive the price a lot further down. But, the inflation and the appreciation is very minimal on gold, but, it's more of a novelty at this point, I believe. And that just, solidifies my fact that people are always finding gold. So this is just a interesting chart right here. And now we're getting to the meat of it. So I think this is the last slide, and then we'll do a Q&A, further Q&A at the end. All right, so how is real estate obviously changing because of this technology? So many of you have already asked a question and I've answered, but we can look in depth. So blockchain is definitely here to stay. Trading platforms are going to make this more, acceptable. So just imagine everybody has the power at their fingertips with a mobile phone or a smart device or, a laptop, obviously. So these marketplaces, you'll be able to trade in and out your contracts, your deeds, you name it, your property. So without third parties really interfering. So we touched upon the intermediaries. So you don't need third parties involved. That's going to make everything you're doing more efficient. Now, as I mentioned, you definitely have to do your studies. There are definitely going to be classes and certificates you can obtain to really, put yourself out there. So I think one good place that's really a good indicator and a start is LinkedIn. There's so much blockchain and cryptocurrency within the groups out there. So start there. Okay, so real estate is obviously booming. Okay, so like no other, the liquidity of these digital assets and within the real estate to transform into blockchain, to be put on blockchain, is going to grow even exponentially. So you don't want to sleep on that. So the example I gave on the next point with the fractional ownership, imagine a hotel or a structure. You can own a piece of the pie. So you can do crowdsource funding, which, the little guy, can put in $100, $1,000, and really benefit. So that also can be done for a car, but it's really going to be relevant for land, because land, everybody wants to own land in space. Okay, so just think about that. Cutting costs is, I'm sure some of you, your brokers, or if you're brokers, or your, your companies are always looking for edges to, make more revenue for your bonuses and to expand. So if you have an idea, I do have the developers and the right project to start some of this. So you can reach me, and then we can definitely get on a call, and then we can talk about future projects. So digitized documents, these are all just going to be on the blockchain. So no more losing paper. Paper trails will be a thing of the past, because you'll receive a transaction ID. You just put it into the Block Explorer, and then you tell your clients, here you go, and it's just a point of reference. Those files won't be lost, as I mentioned, or altered. They'll be the, that'll be the prime way to go about things. And the process will be streamlined with smart contracts, as I mentioned. All right, so here are some of these startups. These are just 4 of them that I've been introduced to, and I've done my research on them. So Property is a big one. So they have a cryptocurrency. So there's number 4, Ubiquity. So those 2 have an asset, underlying asset. So each of them are trying to work and provide a different solution for the different types of, real estate businesses and practices. So, one is dealing primarily with smart contracts. Another is dealing with platforms to trade. Okay, so if you want to screenshot this, but the one thing I want to make clear is there's a lot more than just these 4. Okay, so we're almost done with this slide, and then we'll go ahead and take live questions if necessary, and then I'll answer some of the questions. So as I mentioned, some of them like Shelter, Zoom, they're not dealing with cryptocurrencies themselves. They're just developing the blockchain. So you would be able to look into them and utilize their tools for your needs. So there's so much in the space. So just remember, a blockchain can exist, but without a cryptocurrency on it, it's a little bit more useless per se, because you really need to figure out if you can replace the word database with blockchain within your business model, then you have a problem. So just like there was a lot of fluff in the .com bubble, we're we're probably going to see a lot of that this time around too in the blockchain crypto space. But some of these companies are doing great things, so you can definitely explore them. And as I mentioned, I want to highlight that APIs are the most prominent thing to really look into. If they have good APIs that can hook into a blockchain and streamline the work, then that's going to be very a quick way to adopt and use of their products. So final thoughts. The internet back in the day, just with the email, a lot of people thought it was a scam. Just like the car, would never replace the horse. But we're at that point. So there's no turning back. So blockchain with all these different elements and attributes are going to change, the way we live and work and play. So if you want financial freedom and to control and a more efficient work life, you can definitely take a look how this can change you just on a personal versus business level. Also, just remember that if somebody's fearing something, it's because they're not educated enough, well versed in it. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. It just needs to really be stressed upon. Hey, just as I mentioned with PayPal and Venmos, it took a while for people to really fully understand. So I just want to thank you all for showing up, and then we're going to take some more questions and then have a one-on-one chat session, and then for another good 20 minutes. So short the banks, long Bitcoin, and just keep learning. All right, so let's go to the Q&As here. Let's see where we left off. So all right, so boom, boom, boom. So are you familiar with the Lightning Network and off-chain? Yes, so there are many of those applications, especially within the Ethereum. Second layer solution is just like Lightning Network. So the example I was bringing, so Tyrone was asking the Lightning Network. This should theoretically speed up the transaction speed for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as you saw, takes about 10 minutes to process because the miners have to perform all this computational power to, verify the transactions. So the Lightning Network is like your carpool lane for a congested freeway. So it provides an off-chain, which would be your equivalent to the carpool for a faster one-way throughput. And also NFTs play a role in the future of real estate. Of course, definitely. So you can, if you own a hotel, you could surely turn that into an NFT, break it down to the rooms and sell those. Now, you have to show full ownership, and there's different ways. So your imagination can run wild. So what are the major U.S. regulations? Oh yeah, so don't get me started with the regulatory body. So the SEC, CFTC. Yeah, the U.S. is way behind in regulation as opposed to Asia. Asia is just full force because they see the true value. Now, I don't want to say Americans are lazy, but they're too complacent with everything they already have. It takes a while with the QR codes. That's one aspect of it. It's taking 10 years out of the life cycle for people to say, oh, I have to finally use a QR code to look at my menu. So it's no different. So phasing out jobs is very keen on demoralizing people's attitude towards life. So you have to do it in chunks. You can't just say, oh well, Bitcoin's here, blockchain, because that'll drive a huge frenzy, and then imagine all the people, all the chaos. So let's see here. So So for your question, for the regulatory standpoint, there are great lawyers out there that are in the space that are certified to answer any of your questions about transferring possibly to different countries. Now, does it have to be converted to fiat first? Sell it directly? Now, that's all dependent also on the exchange, as well as what part of the world you live in. Most of the crypto exchanges here and the platforms don't need KYC. KYC stands for Know Your Customer. It's equivalent to you going into the bank and opening an account. You're going to need to provide all your information. Okay. Okay, so can't you just make more BTC like the Fed? No, unfortunately, you cannot. So you could fork BTC to make BTC blah, blah, blah. So the core code is already established. So by consensus, what I meant earlier, and that was a good time to bring this up, it has to be voted upon everybody on the network. So all the miners would say, yes, let's make more BTC. The chances of that happening are very slim, because that would just devalue the whole Bitcoin blockchain value. So that's why there are different cryptocurrencies that you can look into that will be used more efficiently for microtransactions and monetization. Okay. What about title insurance? Are they going to use? Yeah, sure, of course. Land registry is going to be big in India. There are a lot of proof of concepts. I'm working with a cryptocurrency organization that has a dApp where they can track all the registry of land and entitlements from party to party. So that's been in development since 2018. It just takes a while. As I mentioned, developing these, it's going to take some time because there are so many what ifs. Okay. Can you tell me what API stands for? So it's just a programming interface. Okay. So essentially what you're doing is you can send data through these APIs that you connect, and they're connecting to an endpoint. Okay. So it's just taking data or grabbing data from programming interface. Okay. Amazing information. Oh, thank you. Where can I go for further courses on this? So we also do have meetups. So if you go onto our website, we'll once we have more clarity on how we can do the meetups, more safely. Usually we have about 50 plus people. It just depends. You can definitely check us on the meetup. We have a web page. You can email me. So okay. All right. Would you be able to send? Yes. So I'll probably post the file on our YouTube video on our YouTube channel. So you can check us out on cryptosandtokens.com. Okay, so I think I've answered all the questions. Are there any? Does anybody want to go live or ask any questions? Let's see here, participants. Okay, allow to talk. I'm going to allow a few of you to talk that have your hands raised, I think. You might need to unmute yourself. Tyrone. Thomas, I think you're muted. Hello?
Hey, oh, no,
Yes.
It's okay. I don't have you answered all my questions that I posted, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, who's next? Tyrone, you wanna?
That was me.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. For some reason it looked like it. Okay. Thomas, you have a question?
No, are you going to have an advanced video on this?
Yeah. So I actually did a live presentation at PWR. This was actually August of 2019, 6 months prior to COVID, which was actually interesting. Things were a lot different back then in the markets itself, the space. So I will, it'll probably take me, some time to do an advanced course. I'd like to touch more upon smart contracts, probably have some examples, and the next portion would be NFTs. So, we just don't know when the market bubble for this cycle will happen, but a lot of people are, obviously in tune to what's going on. So when the bear market happens, just like any other market cycle, that's when people are going to become more gritty on developing more tools. Then the evaluation of these projects and companies will be more apparent.
All right,
So yeah, there will be an advance, most likely towards the end of the year.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, anybody else? Otherwise, I think we're good to go. We'll probably end it. We got actually another minute. So yeah, hopefully everybody learned quite a bit. For those of you who attended the last presentation, thanks for coming again. And we'll have Jago post the video. I'm sure he'll edit, make it all fancy, and we'll be good to go. Thanks again, everybody.